Hey rail fans, Joe here with the Broadway Limited Import Service Department, and this is the walkthrough video for the hardware reset on a Paragon2 model. For today's demonstration purposes, we're going to use the Mikado. And on the Mikado, there are no screws to remove in order to get the tender shell off. On some models, you might have one screw in each of the four corners to remove, and on other models there might be two screws in the center that need to be removed before the shell comes off. But on a lot of our models, you just lift up on the shell at the point in which the tether cable comes out of the front of the tender. And the way I like to do it is to put my index finger on the frame and my thumb on the shell, and simply push up with my thumb and down with my index finger, and it comes right off. Now, the tender doesn't have to be lashed up to the engine in order to perform the hardware reset, but it's never a bad idea because you can get a little bit of extra current going to the decoder. And keep in mind, this can be done in DCC. Just make sure your system is completely off, then hold down the reset button, and while you're holding it down, turn your system back on. An alternative method would be to leave your DCC system on. Don't lash up the tender to the engine, and while you're holding the button down, lift one side of the tender wheel sets off the rails and then lay them back down on the rails with the button depressed, and the reset will take place that way. So this is our hardware reset button. We have the blue capacitor on one end of the decoder, and on the other end, in between the two small screw holes, you'll find the hardware reset button. Now, I usually use the corner of my thumbnail. However, if you find it difficult to use your fingernail or your thumbnail, you can always use something small like a toothpick in order to hold down the button while doing the reset. If you can't use your fingernail, we recommend you use something wooden or plastic to prevent any damage to circuitry on the decoder. So what you want to do here is hold the button down, throttle all the way down, and while still holding the button, throttle up, and you'll hear that audible confirmation that the reset took place. So that sound you just heard right there, that lets you know that the reset was successful, and you are now on DCC address 3 with the decoder being set back to factory default settings. Okay, so now you can throttle up. The engine will go through its startup sequence, and you should be moving out in DCC address 3, or if you're in DC, of course, it should just be moving like so. Now it's time to put the shell back on, get it on the rails, and go have some fun.